Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Storm, and as you may know, Nintendo has recently announced the successor to the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, or SNES Mini, however you want to call it. Basically, it's going to be another plug-and-play console, this time around with a bunch of Super Nintendo games packaged in. The SNES Classic is going to be a little more expensive than the NES Classic before. While the NES Classic costs $60, which is basically about the price of a brand new game these days, the SNES Classic is going to cost $20 more, $80. Now that's not much of a stretch. I mean, I think anyone, if you're willing to spend $60 on the NES Classic, you probably be willing to spend $80 on the SNES Classic. And honestly, I think the SNES was probably a better system than the NES anyway. I enjoyed it much more than the original NES. But that's just me, I guess. But the point of the SNES Classic is to obviously cash in on the nostalgia factor for older Nintendo fans and to possibly get maybe younger generations who never played the NES or SNES, in this case, get them into these old classic games that a lot of us know and love today. So the unusual thing about the SNES Classic is that it's actually going to contain fewer games than the original NES Classic, which is kind of interesting to note because, as I've said before, I do think the SNES was a better system than the original Nintendo. And not only that, I would think that the majority of fans would probably agree with me, but that aside, there are a lot of classic games in the SNES that people hold in high value even to this day. And Nintendo's choice of games to include in the SNES Classic, while great, will disappoint a few people here and there for a choice few games that didn't make the cut, such as Chrono Trigger. Great game. I'm a fan of that game too, but unfortunately, it didn't make the cut this time around. So the games that are going to be included in the SNES Classic will be as follows. For all regions, these following games, 16 games, will be in every version of the SNES Classic or the Super Famicom in Japan, I suppose. Super Famicom Classic. Anyway, Contra 3, The Alien Wars, Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy 3, which I'm assuming is actually Final Fantasy 6. For those of you who may or may not know, when originally released outside of Japan, rather, Final Fantasy 6 was retitled Final Fantasy 3 in order to try to avoid confusion, since Final Fantasies 2 and 3 were never released outside of Japan originally anyway. So Square decided to take Final Fantasy 4, repackage that as Final Fantasy 2, and then release that everywhere else in order to try to avoid confusion, because it'd be kind of weird for everyone else if the series skipped 2 games from 1 to 4 and then skipped one more game from 5 to 6 if they had gone about it that way. So 4 and 6 will be repackaged as 2 and 3 outside of Japan to avoid confusion, and then somehow causing even more confusion when Square finally tried to set the numbers straight when they released most of the games on PS1. The real Final Fantasy 3, unfortunately, not included in that re-release, in any of those re-releases. But I'm going on a tangent right there for a second. Contra 3, The Alien Wars, Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 6, rather. F-Zero, the first one, Kirby Superstar, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Mega Man X, which I was surprised to actually learn started out on the SNES. For some reason, I always thought those started on PS1. But considering that they're like 8 or 9 Mega Man X games, I suppose it makes sense to start out on the SNES, considering how long that series has been going. Secret of Mana, never played that series, but I've been vaguely interested in those games. Star Fox, the original one. Star Fox 2, which is interesting because Star Fox 2 was never released. It was finished. It was fully developed. It was ready to go out the door if Nintendo wanted to, but apparently Nintendo, the SNES was near the end of its life cycle. N64 was around the corner. They were always starting development on that, so I believe it was Shigeru Miyamoto's decision, I could be wrong about that, to scrap Star Fox 2 and just do Star Fox 64, which was actually a reboot of the series off the bat, and just go with that. So Star Fox 2, first time I've ever actually been seeing any actual release outside of maybe leaked ROMs online or something. First ever actual official release, according to the article on Wikipedia. You can unlock Star Fox 2 by completing the first level in Star Fox 1. I don't know why it has to be unlocked. That seems kind of weird, but alright, I guess. I don't know. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario RPG Legend of 7 Stars, So much critical acclaim for that game. I never played it, but I really, really want to. I have to check it out. Super Mario World, best Mario game ever in my opinion. That is the #1 Mario game ever. I would probably say, yeah, I never got far into it, but I would probably say Super Mario 64 is probably maybe the second best Mario game. I never got far into that game, but like every time I played it, I really enjoyed that one. So, again, my opinion, I guess. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. I have no idea why that's supposed to be Super Mario World 2. I don't know why that couldn't just be Yoshi's Island without the Super Mario World subtitle to it. Whatever. Super Metroid, which despite the name actually is basically Metroid 2, I think. Those 16 games will be in every version of the Super NES Classic. But for some reason, Nintendo is making several games exclusive to Japan and then another set of games exclusive to everywhere else in the world. Why they're doing that exactly makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to just have all the games together. If I remember correctly, the NES Classic had like about 30 games all in one, right? I don't remember exactly, but the SNES Classic is only gonna have like 21 games in it. So these 5 games will be exclusive to Western versions of the SNES Classic: Earthbound, Kirby's Dream Course, Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting, another version of that game, Jesus, Super Castlevania 4, and Super Punch-Out! While Fire Emblem, Mystery of the Emblem, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Panel-de-Pon, Super Soccer, and Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers, will be that makes no sense. Okay, so those 5 games will be exclusive to the Japanese version of the Super NES Classic, or rather the Super Famicom Classic. Okay, you know, despite what I just said, I know what I just said, but you know what, looking at the games that will be exclusive to the Japanese version, well, games that are probably popular in Japan, but probably, well, we never either they weren't popular in the U.S. or they were never we never got them. But it seems odd though. They have 2 different versions of Super Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting for the rest of the world, and Super Street Fighter 2: The New Challengers only for Japan. I don't know why. I really don't know the difference between the two because Super Street Fighter 2, and I think 3 and 4 have been re-released so many times. It's kind of hard to keep track of which version is which and which version has like specific changes in gameplay balances and whatever else in it. So I really don't know the difference between the 2 versions, but whatever. That's what Nintendo was doing. So the SNES Classic is coming hot off the heels of the NES Classic. Now, if you remember, the NES Classic, that was just a clusterfuck of a launch. The NES Classic was so infamous for being sold out everywhere, and despite Nintendo actually making a few thousand more units, maybe 100 more units, the thing was still sold out everywhere. And if you wanted one, you had to go to eBay and to find Craigslist ads and find scalpers who were selling them for like just a monstrous profit. Like, this would be $60 consoles, and you had people flipping them for $400 or $500. I believe the highest bidding I saw for the NES Classic was $80,000 on eBay. One day I just checked to say NES Classic, and then I sorted them. What's the highest price I was asking for this? I think it's like $80,000 for one. Why? You know, I mean, I wanted one too. I wasn't able to get one, unfortunately. I wanted one too, but $80,000. No one's gonna pay $80,000 for what is essentially just a plug-and-play console for games that really. I think majority of those games you can get on your 3DS anyway. So it's like, why would you even do it? 80 grand for that? No one's paying that. No one's paying that much money for it. And unfortunately, despite Nintendo's efforts and what they've said that they would make sure they could provide as many SNES Classics as possible this time around, as opposed to what happened last time, as soon as they announced the SNES Classic, of course, pre-orders sold out instantly. So now everyone is just sitting there, just ho-humming because they can't get their hands on an SNES Classic because they're all sold out, pre-orders anyway. The console will come out September in North America and Europe, and Australia, and October in Japan. And according to Nintendo, they'll be making them throughout 2017. I mean, from then on, as soon as they release till the end of 2017, that's how long they'll be making and selling them. And then after that, that's it. Which I guess I can be fine with, but I mean, Nintendo has this problem all the time. And in the past, it has been proven that Nintendo apparently purposefully does artificial shortages for their consoles. They did it for the NES and the SNES. I don't think they did it for the N64, the GameCube, and the Wii. I'm sorry, yeah, and N64, GameCube, and Wii. I don't think they did it for those. Although for the Wii, that took Nintendo by surprise. They couldn't keep any product on store shelves because they severely underestimated the demand for the console. And then the Wii U was kind of the fucking opposite of that. Although now, since that's been basically discontinued, we may be seeing resurgence of that. Well, at least people are flipping them for outrageous amounts of money anyway. So we sort of have that same problem with the Nintendo Switch. As many people know, you cannot find a Nintendo Switch just for the life of you. Now without paying a very tidy sum for it from someone from Craigslist or eBay or wherever you're buying it from. Nintendo has the same problem with the Switch as they have with the Wii. They cannot keep any product on store shelves. They sold out immediately, and now Nintendo themselves are having trouble producing more consoles because supposedly, this is what I have heard. I don't know exactly how true this is, but apparently the problem is that a particular computer chip that Nintendo needs for the Switch is also something that's coveted by Apple for the iPhones, possibly the upcoming iPhone 8. Both companies need this particular computer chip, and it's becoming a very big hassle for Nintendo to get their hands on them so they can produce more consoles. So I think the reason we have the SNES Classic is something of a concession from Nintendo, since they can't produce any more Switches as much as they want to, as fast as they could. They have promised to get more in the future. Obviously, they will, even though we have this shortage right now. I kind of view the SNES Classic as maybe Nintendo apologizing for the lack of Switches out there. Since they can't put out any more Nintendo Switches in store shelves for right now, they're doing this to maybe kind of appease fans, especially the older, more hardcore Nintendo fans who would just run to something like this. Now, that said, why we have this, the fact that we have this in general, this new SNES Classic, I gotta be honest, I kind of don't care. I wanted the NES Classic. I couldn't get one. I want a Switch. I still can't get that either. And now Nintendo's doing the SNES Classic, and as I've said, pre-orders for the system have sold out immediately. As soon as they were announced, they were sold out immediately. And considering Nintendo's track record with anything they do that's popular, and which again apparently in the past they have been known to cause artificial shortages for their consoles, at least with the NES and the SNES. I don't know about the N64 and the GameCube. I don't think they did it for those, and the Wii. Again, like I said, that took them by surprise. In all honesty, they didn't expect the Wii to be that popular, so it's difficult for them to get systems back out there for consumers. But anything popular that Nintendo has, they kind of just fuck up with it. They either just underestimate the demand for it, or they purposefully just make a small amount of whatever it is, a game or system or peripheral or whatever it is, and just leave everyone hanging. Like, again, when everyone was demanding more NES Classics because they would want them, people were willing to pay the $60 for them, and people are willing to pay the $80 for this. And Nintendo's response to that is just kind of to shrug their shoulders and just be like, well, what are you gonna do? We said it was a limited run console. It is a limited run console. We're not making them anymore, so good luck with that. I mean, a lot of people say that Nintendo doesn't want to keep making NES Classics or even SNES Classics because they feel it's going to make them compete with themselves. Like, the prevailing theory is that Nintendo's going to eventually open a virtual console for the Switch, with like pretty much every generation of Nintendo games they've ever had up to this point. I do think I could be wrong about this. I need to double check, but I do think that Nintendo has confirmed that they're all going to come out with a GameCube virtual console for the Switch, which I would fucking love. I would appreciate the hell out of that. Either they've confirmed that, or they said they're thinking about doing that. Don't quote me on that, but I hope it happens. And if that is the case, and if that the theory is that Nintendo doesn't want to keep making NES or SNES Classics because they want to drive sales to this Switch, because eventually they will re-release all these games on the Switch. I mean, it's still a slap in the face for fans who want these little micro consoles, these plug-and-play consoles with all these classic games on them, but Nintendo is just doing everything they can to prevent them from buying them. So, to that extent, the way Nintendo has handled things in the past, I kind of don't care about the SNES Classic. I mean, I want one, don't get me wrong, I do want one, but I'm just not going to worry over it. If I can get one, that'll be awesome. If I can get one, I'll get one. If I can't, oh well, I guess. I mean, and if Nintendo does come out with the classic games on the Switch, and if I can finally get my hands on the fucking Switch when they make more of those, put those out on shelves, I think that's probably what I would do. Rather than get a plug-and-play console, I'd rather just have everything on the Switch and like make that thing like the ultimate Nintendo system. Like NES, SNES, N64, GameCube, hopefully. Even Wii and Wii U games on the Switch. That would be pretty much the ultimate Nintendo system. Especially with the fucking Pro Controller. I want that Pro Controller. Like I think that probably is Nintendo's best controller ever, I think. Although I've said it before in the past, I kind of wish that for any future Pro Controllers, they kind of went with the Wii U Pro Controller setup scheme. Where, you know, the thumbsticks at the top of the controller and the D-pad and the face buttons at the bottom of the controller, just kind of make it different from the 360 and the PS3 and PS4 controllers. Just to give it some sort of distinction amongst its compatriots. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. A lot of people like the Pro Controller as it is, but you know, I don't hate it. I'm just saying. I thought it would be interesting if they done it that way. So, like I said, you know, SNES Classic, it's coming. I want one, but I don't think I'm going to get one. Not for lack of wanting it, not for lack of trying, but just because Nintendo has done this many times before. The demand is there, but for some reason they want to do everything they can just to not meet the demand for whatever backwards reasons that they have. Who knows what's going to happen? As I'll say this, if Nintendo does an N64 Classic Edition, which they could, they might, and if I can't get that, like an N64 Classic or something, I think that I'd be probably pretty mad at Nintendo. Kind of mad at them now. Like I said, I want a fucking Switch. I want one. I guess I can still for a Wii U. I guess I still don't have that either. But anyway, just let me know what you think in the comments. You want an SNES Classic? You don't care? You like me? Like you want to get one, but you're not gonna worry over it? Just let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you guys later.